Minnesota has asked the Ohio State Highway Patrol to help during the Chauvin trial. Minnesota law enforcement released this statement last night saying Minnesota has requested police officers from other states to help protect people, property, and freedom of speech during the Chauvin trial. Obviously, an extraordinary move in an extraordinary time. We are very grateful this morning to have Governor Tim Walz live in studio. Governor, thank you so much for coming in.
Good morning, Esme.
All right, we want to start with the latest, the shooting of National Guard troops at 4:19 this morning. You have 2 guardsmen that are injured, including one that you know. What is the latest?
Yeah, well, it highlights, Esme, the volatility of this situation. And I did speak with both of the soldiers this morning, one of whom did serve with me in the unit that I was in the National Guard. They're okay, but it highlights how dangerous this situation can get. But I would like to note that both these soldiers' commitments to holding 2 truths in their mind at the same time remains unshaken. That there's a community in trauma. There's a community in trauma from George Floyd's death. There's a community in trauma from Daunte Wright dying a week ago in front of everyone. And they recognize this community needs to have a space to peacefully protest and demand change. But they also recognize that amongst those thousands of peaceful protesters, there's folks who are willing to shoot at police, burn buildings, do those things, and we're trying to strike that proper balance. I recognize clearly the trauma of a community that views the police with suspicion at best in some cases, views this as adding to the trauma. But Minnesotans, I think, know we can't go through what we went through in May and June, and those folks who are out there asking for change need to be heard. The legislature needs to move. We have to have a relief and understand that this can't go on. Black parents can't worry every time their child drives out of the house, and it doesn't matter if that black child is going to wash a car or go somewhere else or go to a peaceful protest.
Well, Governor, let me ask you, you have turned to the state of Ohio and other states to bring in police and state troopers from other states to help. Do you have the resources with these twin crises, with the Brooklyn Center situation and also the verdict coming in the Derek Chauvin case?
Well, the verdict is going to be a pivotal point in our state's history, and how we respond to that is going to shape us. Again, the change that needs to happen to make sure that these situations do not continue, and the ability to stop the looting and to stop the destruction that we saw. It's the assessment of public safety folks after we did after action of last summer to try and understand what it's going to take. The advantage here is we had no preparation time last summer. This time we do. And I think it's my responsibility to make sure that does not happen. It would be irresponsible if we did not have enough. And this happens all the time, whether it's flooding or other things. States cooperate with one another, and I'm grateful for Ohio and the state of Nebraska to help.
I want to go back to the National Guard because these are citizen soldiers, as you well know. You served. I mean, this is a lot to take on. They're getting shot at in their own state, something I'm sure they never prepared for. Are they in a position, have you talked to their leadership, are they in a position to handle this, and are they going to be okay?
They are. These are the very people that when we ask them, and National Guard's a unique organization. It has a dual mission. It reports to the governor on the civilian side, and it reports to the president. They do everything from overseas missions to being here to provide injections for COVID vaccines, to be in nursing homes when we didn't have enough care. And they do what's asked of them. They're here to do those 2 very critical things: to protect the right of people to peacefully protest and express their grievances to government, but to make sure that it doesn't disintegrate into a situation where life and property is put at risk. They know they have the support. They feel confident in this, and it's our responsibility as all Minnesotans. These are your neighbors. They hang that uniform up normally on a Monday and go back to teaching.
On the other hand, we have also, and we heard it earlier, the anger at law enforcement, and including the National Guard, including the Minnesota State Patrol, for the handling of some of these protests, including the detainment and, frankly, assaults on a couple of journalists, several of whom are journalists of color, as a lot of people disturbed. I know you've apologized for that, but where is the line here?
Apologies are not enough. It just cannot happen. These are volatile situations, and that's not an excuse. It's an understanding that we need to continue to get better. There is a bright line on, and the reporters are there to hold police accountable. They're there to hold protesters accountable. They're there to make sure this is done in accordance with our law. If they are detained for any amount of time and held back, they're not able to do their job. So as I talked to many news organizations yesterday, that responsibility, and I will continue to put it out, whether it's Brooklyn Park Police, whether it's State Patrol. The State Patrol, DNR, National Guard fall under under the authority of the governor. But in a joint operation like this, I think we all need to recognize the assault on media across the world and even in our country over the last few years is chilling. We cannot function as a democracy if they're not there. My apologies are sincere, but I will tell you what, they will take that apology much more seriously if they see actions. We stopped some of the things they asked us to. Do not photograph us. That was meant to move things faster, but I will be the first to admit the other night when I heard it, I said, we need to stop this. It's not speeding it up, and these journalists, they're not, we don't get to hold them and say, this is who we want you to tell. We need to tell the story. And I know our troops do the very best they can, but as I've said, this is zero sum. If we have one incident of someone being detained, if we have one incident, if it is a journalist of color, that we have to have a white journalist vouch for them, that's adding to the angst of the people who are out there, and our folks know that.
And that has happened. We've had black journalists
It's happened twice. It happened last summer, and I understand it happened again with a photojournalist. So my pledge to those organizations, and I think for Minnesotans, the press needs to be there. And I will say it's a challenge. The traditional press with credentials and people who know them, but there's a new media, and they deserve to be out there, whether it's Unicorn, Riot, Mercado Media, or someone who's reporting this. They have a perspective that needs to be told that should not be filtered. Our challenges is some of these bad actors who hide in the crowds, but that's not an excuse. That is not an excuse.
And those additional and new media are definitely contributing to the coverage of this and providing an essential voice. I do want to ask you about specifics, though, trying to look ahead to see if we can move on from this. Representative Cedric Frazier of New Hope has a bill, introduced it this week, that would limit the authority of police and law enforcement to pull people over and what they could do during minor traffic stops. This is happening in other states, in other cities and communities. What do you think about that?
Smart.
Is that a good idea?
Yeah, Representative Frazier has a very important voice in this. And I agree with this, and it's some of the things we put forward. The idea that you would lose your life over a tabs being expired or even a warrant. There's better ways to do this. We're setting up situations that create volatility and the expectation that there will be violence. And we know that maybe a white motorist doesn't think so much about if they're pulled over for an air freshener on there, but every single black family knows, and everybody listening this morning knows, if you're black, that becomes a dangerous situation. You can't, Dante saw the video of George Floyd, and that thinking is what happens to me now?
Right. Well, I know, as a mother who has children in this age group, young adult children, I have a son who may do goofy and dumb things. Driving around, he may get pulled over, but I've never had to tell him that his life could be at risk. And mothers, white mothers and black mothers and brown mothers who have children of color are having those conversations, and they are terrified, and I've talked to a number of them.
And it's true. It's true in Minnesota that it's much less safe to be black in Minnesota than to be white. When you hear those folks, the anger, and they certainly should express it at me, they should express it at legislators, I accept that responsibility because I will not claim that my son would be put in the same situation. And we cannot function as a society in Minnesota, in our country, if everyone doesn't have the same expectations of safety.
These incidents are happening everywhere. We know that. But some of the most painful ones, some of the most difficult ones that have attracted national, even worldwide attention, they've happened here in Minnesota, and it keeps happening. Dante Wright is just the latest. George Floyd, Philando Castile, some people would say Justine Ruszczyk-Damond. Is there something about us that these kinds of cases keep happening?
We better ask ourselves that, and I think there is a sense of a state that has done very well in many areas, especially if you're white. There's a sense of pride, and for some of those things we should be proud of. But it's not good enough now to just acknowledge that our children of color do almost as bad as anybody in the country in schools. Home ownership, prenatal care for women yes, there's something here. I think one of the things that I hope is happening here is that this reckoning is upon us and know that it can't go on. I said it in May, I don't think we're going to get another chance at this. And I think that gap that is so wide between white and black in Minnesota adds to that. And so that may be why we're seeing these at the rate we're seeing.
A lot of people are holding their breath over the next few days and the next week, wondering and fearful of what's going to happen. What can you say to Minnesota? Are we going to be safe? Are we going to be okay? Are businesses going to go down? Your thoughts?
Well, it's my responsibility. I would tell Minnesotans that we are doing everything in our power to do that. And I want to hold those two truths at the same time. The folks you see out there at Brooklyn Center are in trauma, and they're rightfully angry at a system that does not serve them and puts black youth and people of color at risk. That is all absolutely true. We also know from experience in May there will be those that will exploit that. I cannot allow that to happen. That conversation about change, Representative Frazier's bill, we can't pass those things if we are in chaos and crisis and our buildings are burning. So my commitment, and I'm asking this of Minnesotans, talk to your neighbors and have these hard conversations. Don't be afraid to say, I don't understand why they're so angry. Ask the questions that may seem totally, you just don't understand it, and talk to your neighbor. Talk to them. Approach someone. I ask white families, have the conversation to understand why black mothers are terrified and why they don't believe it's going to get any better. And when they hear someone say, I can't believe this happened to Dante Wright, a black mother will tell you, oh yes, we can believe it. It happens all the time. So my commitment to Minnesota is, yes, we will do everything in our power. We cannot abuse that power under the idea of making sure there's not civil disobedience. We have to strike that proper balance. My pledge is continue to try and find that.
All right, Governor Tim Walz, thank you so much.
Thanks,
and we
Esme.
certainly are hoping that things go well the next few days for everybody in the state. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Esme.